The bright blue star that had warmed the planet Zephyr Prime for millions of years was dying. Not slowly, as stars usually did, but fast and wrong. Something dark and hungry had attached itself to the star's core, eating it from the inside. The Zephyrian scientists called it a stellar parasite, but they had no idea how to stop it. Veltar stood in the observation deck of the Grand Science Tower, watching the sun flicker like a candle in the wind. His pale blue skin had turned almost white with worry. As the chief science officer of his people, he knew exactly what the dying star meant. They had maybe 6 months before their world became a frozen rock floating in space. The evacuation plans were a joke. The Zephyrians had built their civilization around peace and learning, not running away from dying worlds. Their ships were designed for careful exploration and trade, not for moving billions of people. Even if they used every ship they had, they could only save about 10% of their population. "Sir," said his assistant, a young female named Kira. Her voice shook as she spoke. "The council is ready for your final report." Veltar picked up his data pad and walked slowly to the council chamber. The grand room was filled with the leaders of his people, all waiting to hear what they already knew. Their world was ending, and they could not save themselves. "Honored council members," Veltar began, his voice echoing in the large room. "Our sun will collapse in approximately 180 days. We have reviewed every possible solution. There is no way to stop the stellar parasite with our current technology." The room was silent except for the soft humming of the air systems. Council leader Zara, an elderly woman with kind eyes, finally spoke. "What about evacuation? We can save perhaps 800 million people," Veltar said. "That leaves over 7 billion who will die with our world." The silence that followed was heavy and painful. These were not warlike people. They had never faced anything like this before. Their greatest conflicts had been about which type of poetry should be taught in schools. "Then we must ask for help," said Council Member Dex, a middle-aged man known for his practical thinking. "Send out a distress call to all known civilizations. Offer them anything they want in exchange for ships to help us evacuate." "What could we possibly offer that would make other species risk their ships and people for us?" asked another council member. Veltar straightened up. "Our technology. We are known throughout the galaxy for our advances in medical science, quantum computing, and energy efficiency. Any species that helps us can have access to all of it." The council voted quickly. Within hours, the most powerful communication array on Zephyr Prime was broadcasting their plea across the known galaxy. The message was simple and desperate. "This is Zephyr Prime calling all civilized species. Our star is dying. We need evacuation ships to save our people. In exchange, we offer our complete technological database and eternal friendship. Please help us. We are running out of time." The first responses came within days. They were not encouraging. The Altarians, a tall and graceful species known for their beautiful ships, sent their regrets. "We sympathize with your situation," their message said. "However, our vessels are not designed to operate near unstable stellar bodies. The radiation would damage our ships and kill our crews." The crystalline Vorthak, who lived for thousands of years and thought very slowly, sent a more detailed response. "We have the technology to assist you," they said. "However, our decision-making process requires several years of consideration. Also, our ships move very slowly. We estimate we could reach you in approximately 2 years. 2 years. The Zephyrians would be dead in 6 months. More responses came in over the following weeks. The plant like Verdani could not survive in the cold vacuum of space long enough for such a mission. The aquatic deepers had no ships capable of landing on solid worlds. The robotic synthesizers calculated that the mission had too low a probability of success to be worth attempting. Each rejection felt like another nail in their coffin. Veltar spent his days reading the messages and his nights staring at their dying star, wondering if they would be remembered at all after their world froze. Then came a response that made no sense. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Defiance, representing the human colonial fleet. We received your distress call and are prepared to assist with evacuation operations. We will arrive at your location in 4 weeks. Please prepare landing coordinates for our advance team." Veltar read the message 3 times before calling his assistant. "Kira, run a search on this species called humans. I have never heard of them." Kira worked at her computer for several minutes before looking up with confusion. "Sir, there is no record of any species called humans in our galactic database. The sector they claim to come from is marked as a hazardous zone. Our records say it contains multiple death worlds with extreme conditions. No intelligent life is supposed to exist there. Death worlds. Veltar felt a chill run through his body. Death worlds were planets so dangerous that they could kill most known life forms just by existing. Worlds with poisonous atmospheres, deadly weather, or radiation that would cook you from the inside. The idea that intelligent life could evolve on such worlds was considered impossible. Maybe it is a mistake, Kira suggested. Perhaps their navigation systems are broken and they do not know where they are. But Veltar was looking at the technical specifications that had come with the human message. Their ships were described as multi-role vessels capable of operations in hostile stellar environments. The numbers made no sense. According to the data, human ships could survive radiation levels that would melt most known materials. "Sir," Kira said quietly, "should we respond to them?" Veltar looked out the window at their dying star. What choice did they have? Every other species had said no or could not help in time. These mysterious humans were their only hope, even if they came from impossible worlds. "Send a response," he said. "Tell them we accept their offer and will prepare landing coordinates. And Kira, start researching everything we can find about death worlds. I have a feeling we are about to meet something very different from anything we have encountered before." As Kira sent the message, Veltar wondered what kind of beings could survive on worlds that killed everything else. He was about to find out, and somehow he was not sure if he should be grateful or terrified. The humans were coming, and nothing in the Zephyrian experience had prepared them for what that might mean. Outside the window, their star flickered again, reminding them all that time was running out. In 4 weeks they would meet the beings from the death worlds. Veltar could only hope that their saviors would not turn out to be something worse than dying with their planet. But deep in his heart, a small flame of hope had been lit. For the first time since their son had started dying, someone had said yes. Someone was coming to help. Even if they came from impossible worlds and made no sense, they were coming. That had to count for something. When the human ships arrived at Zephyr Prime, they did not look like any vessels the Zephyrians had ever seen. Instead of the smooth, elegant curves that most civilized species preferred, the human ships were blocky and practical. They looked like flying metal boxes covered in strange bumps, antennas, and what appeared to be weapons. Veltar stood in the main communication center, watching the alien fleet through the large viewing screen. There were dozens of ships, all different sizes. Some were huge, clearly meant for carrying large numbers of people. Others were smaller and looked built for fighting. All of them looked rough and functional, like tools instead of art. "They are requesting permission to establish communication," reported Communications Officer Nix, his voice uncertain. "Their technology is primitive, but it works." "Open a channel," Veltar ordered. His hands were shaking slightly. After weeks of preparation, they were finally going to meet the beings who had volunteered to help them. The viewing screen flickered and then showed the inside of what was clearly a human ship. The first thing Veltar noticed was how cramped everything looked. Where Zephyrian ships had open spaces and beautiful decorations, this ship was packed with equipment and screens. Everything looked purely functional. Then he saw the human. Captain Sarah Chen was unlike anything in the Galactic database. She was shorter than most Zephyrians, with dark hair pulled back tightly and skin that was a warm brown color. But what struck Veltar most was her eyes. They were alert and intelligent, but there was something else there. Something that made him think of predators. "This is Captain Chen of the UES Defiance," she said in accented but clear Galactic standard. "We are here to help with your evacuation. We have studied your situation and developed a plan." "We are grateful for your assistance," Veltar replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "However, we must ask about your species. We have no record of humans in our galactic database." Captain Chen smiled, and Veltar noticed that her teeth were very white and looked sharp. "That is not surprising. We only achieved faster-than-light travel about 50 years ago. We have been too busy exploring and building colonies to introduce ourselves properly to galactic civilization." "Your ships," Veltar said carefully. "They appear to be military vessels." "Some of them are," Chen agreed without seeming bothered by the observation. "We brought our military because this operation is extremely dangerous. Your star is putting out radiation that would kill most species. We needed ships and people who could handle that." Veltar felt his blood run cold. "Captain Chen, Surely you understand that working near our dying star is fatal to organic life. The radiation levels alone would cook any known biological tissue. Captain Chen's smile became wider, and Veltar was suddenly sure that he was looking at something that hunted other living things. You have never met humans before, have you? We come from what your people would call Deathworlds. We are really good at not dying when we are supposed to. She touched something on her control panel and the screen split to show another human. This one was older, with gray hair and scars on his face. This is Colonel Rodriguez, our ground operations commander. He will explain the evacuation plan. Colonel Rodriguez looked directly at Veltar, and his eyes were just as predatory as the captain's. We have reviewed your population distribution and identified the most efficient extraction points. Our heavy transport ships will land in your major cities while our escort vessels protect them from stellar radiation. But the radiation? Veltar protested. How will you protect your people? We will not completely protect them, Rodriguez said matter-of-factly. Some of our people will get sick. Some will die. But we have calculated acceptable loss rates. Veltar stared at the screen in shock. These beings were talking about their own deaths as if it was just another part of the plan. Acceptable losses? You are discussing the deaths of your own people as if it is normal. Captain Chen leaned forward and her expression became serious. Veltar, is that right? Your name? When he nodded, she continued. Veltar, let me explain something about humans. We come from a world that has been trying to kill us since the day life first crawled out of the ocean. Poisonous animals, deadly weather, diseases, natural disasters, and a dozen other things that most species never have to deal with. We learned that if you want to live, you have to be willing to risk dying, Colonel Rodriguez added. Every human in this fleet volunteered for this mission knowing they might not go home. They came anyway because saving people is the right thing to do. Veltar looked around the communications center at his own people. They were all staring at the humans with expressions of shock and fear. These beings were discussing death and danger as if it was completely normal. Captain, Veltar said slowly, what kind of world did you come from that produced people like you? Chen and Rodriguez looked at each other, and something passed between them that Veltar did not understand. Dr. Webb, Chen called to someone off-screen. Come explain Earth to our new friends. A third human appeared on the screen. This one was younger and wore what looked like a scientist's coat. He had friendly eyes, but when he smiled, Veltar noticed that his teeth were just as sharp as the others. Earth, Dr. Webb began, is what we call a Class 12's death world. The gravity is higher than most inhabited worlds. The atmosphere contains oxygen, which is highly reactive and toxic to many species. The weather includes lightning storms that can kill you instantly, winds that can level buildings, and water that falls from the sky hard enough to hurt. He paused to touch his control panel, and images appeared on the screen. Veltar saw a world of blue and green and white, beautiful but somehow terrifying. The planet is also home to millions of species that evolved to kill and eat each other. Webb continued. Predators with claws and teeth and venom. Natural disasters like earthquakes and volcanoes and floods. Diseases that can kill you in days or hours. How do you survive? Whispered Kira, who had been listening in growing horror. Dr. Webb's smile became almost gentle. We learned to be tougher than everything trying to kill us. Humans can survive in temperatures that would freeze or cook most species. We can hold our breath for minutes, go without food for weeks, and keep working even when we are badly injured. We heal fast and we adapt faster. But most importantly, Captain Chen added, we learned never to give up. Humans do not lie down and die just because things look impossible. We find a way or we make one. Colonel Rodriguez nodded. Your people are facing extinction. Most species would consider this an acceptable loss and move on. Humans see this as a problem that needs solving. We will solve it. Veltar felt something he had not experienced in months. Hope. These strange, dangerous beings from an impossible world were talking about saving his people as if it was already decided. They were not discussing whether it could be done, only how to do it. What do you need from us? He asked. Landing coordinates for our ships, Chen replied. Lists of your major population centers. And trust. This is going to look very dangerous to your people. We need them to trust us even when what we are doing seems crazy. Will it seem crazy? Veltar asked. All three humans smiled at once, and Veltar realized he was looking at beings that thought differently than any species he had ever met. Probably, Dr. Webb said cheerfully. We tend to do things that seem impossible to other species. But that is how humans solve problems. We do the impossible until it becomes normal. As the communication ended, Veltar sat in his chair and stared at the dark screen. His people were going to be saved by creatures that treated death as an inconvenience and impossible as a suggestion. He was not sure if he should be grateful or terrified. Maybe both. The human evacuation began at dawn on the day their dying star released its worst solar flare in recorded history. Veltar watched from the safety of an underground bunker as the human ships descended through radiation that should have killed every living thing aboard them. The first transport, ship to land, was the size of a small city. It came down in the middle of New Zephyr, the planet's largest city. Its engines roaring like controlled explosions. The ground shook and windows broke from the sound alone. Zephyrian emergency systems screamed warnings about radiation levels that were climbing past fatal levels. "Sir," Kira said, her voice tight with fear, "the radiation around that ship is measuring at over 3,000 units. That is enough to kill one of us in minutes." Veltar watched through the monitoring systems as the massive ship settled onto the landing pad they had prepared. The metal of the pad actually began to glow from the heat and radiation. Then, impossibly, a ramp lowered from the ship's belly. Humans walked out into hell. They wore what appeared to be basic protective suits, but Veltar's instruments showed that the radiation was penetrating the suits easily. By all known science, the humans should have been dead within seconds. Instead, they began setting up equipment and organizing evacuation zones as if they were working in a pleasant park. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Hex, the chief medical officer who had joined them in the bunker. "No organic life can survive those conditions." "Apparently humans can," Veltar replied, watching in fascination as the aliens worked efficiently in conditions that would have been instantly fatal to his people. A communication came through from Captain Chen. Her image appeared on the screen, and Veltar was shocked to see that she looked completely normal. She was not dying or even appearing sick. "Veltar, we are ready to begin loading your people," she said. "Our teams are setting up processing stations in each major city. We can take about 50,000 people per ship per trip." "Captain," Veltar said, "our instruments show that your people are being exposed to lethal radiation. How are they still alive?" Chen smiled that predatory smile again. "Human biology is different from yours. We have natural resistance to radiation, and our medical teams have given everyone treatments to boost that resistance even more. We will be fine for several hours." Several hours. Veltar's people would be dead in minutes from that level of exposure. "Some of your people might find our appearance disturbing," Chen continued. "Radiation exposure causes visible changes in humans. We get sunburned, our hair might fall out, and we might look sick. But these are temporary effects. We heal." Over the following hours, Veltar watched through drone cameras as the humans worked with mechanical efficiency. They had divided each city into sections and were systematically evacuating every building. When Zephyrian families hesitated to approach the terrifying human ships, the aliens would remove their helmets to show their faces and speak gently to the frightened people. The sight of the humans' faces made Veltar's stomach turn. Their skin was red and blistered from radiation burns. Some had lost patches of hair. Many looked sick and exhausted, but they kept working, kept smiling, kept helping his people climb aboard the evacuation ships. "Why are they doing this to themselves?" Kira asked, tears in her eyes as she watched a human soldier carry a Zephyrian child to safety. The soldier's face was badly burned, but he was singing something to keep the child calm. "Because they said they would," Veltar answered, beginning to understand something fundamental about these impossible beings. The worst moment came when their dying star released another massive flare. Veltar watched in horror as the radiation levels spiked to numbers his instruments could barely measure. Several human ships lost their protective shields completely. Instead of retreating, the humans adapted. Teams of them went outside their ships without any protection at all, working in rotating shifts to repair the shield generators. They would work for a few minutes, then run back inside while another team took their place. Veltar watched humans collapse from radiation sickness, get medical treatment, and then go back outside to continue repairs. "They are killing themselves to save us," Dr. Hex said in amazement. But the humans did not die. They got sick, they suffered, they looked terrible, but they did not die. Instead, they did something that challenged everything the Zephyrians thought they knew about biology. They healed. Dr. Webb's voice came through the communication system, speaking to the medical teams in the bunker. "I thought you might want to understand what you are seeing," he said. His face was red and swollen from radiation burns, but his voice was steady. "Human beings evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us," he explained. "Our bodies learned to repair damage very quickly. We can survive radiation levels that would cook most species. We heal from injuries that would be permanently crippling to others. And most importantly, we do not stop working just because we are hurt." "But surely there are limits," Dr. Hex protested. "No biological system can withstand infinite damage." Webb nodded, wincing as the movement clearly caused him pain. "You are right. Some of our people will not recover completely from this. Some may die later from the effects of radiation exposure, but we calculated acceptable losses before we came." "How can you calculate your own deaths?" Feltar asked. "Because saving your people is worth the risk," Webb replied simply. "That is what humans do. We risk ourselves to protect others, even if those others are strangers from another world." The evacuation continued for 3 days. Veltar watched as transport ship after transport ship lifted off, carrying thousands of his people to safety. The human crews rotated constantly, with fresh teams replacing those who became too sick to continue working. By the end of the 3rd day, over 6 billion Zephyrians had been evacuated. The impossible had become routine. The humans had somehow made the deadly work of rescuing people from a dying world look easy. But Veltar could see the cost. The human ships were damaged and patched with crude repairs. Many of the crew members were clearly suffering from radiation sickness. Some had to be carried to their ships by their fellow humans. Captain Chen appeared on the communication screen for the final time. Her face was badly burned and most of her hair was gone, but her eyes were still alert and determined. "We have successfully evacuated 97% of your population," she reported. "The remaining 3% chose to stay with their world. We have loaded your people onto colony ships and will transport them to suitable worlds for resettlement." "Captain," Veltar said, "we can never repay what you have done. Your people suffered greatly to save ours." Chen's damaged face managed to smile. "That is what neighbors do for each other. Besides, this was good training for our people. We learned a lot about working in extreme stellar conditions. Training. They had treated the rescue of an entire civilization as training. Will your people recover?" Veltar asked. "Most of us will be fine in a few weeks," Chen replied. "Humans are very good at healing. The few who have serious injuries will receive the best medical care we can provide." They knew the risks when they volunteered. As the last human ships prepared to leave, Veltar realized that he was looking at beings who had redefined his understanding of what was possible. They had taken a situation that every other species had declared hopeless and solved it through sheer determination and the willingness to suffer for others. The humans were not stronger or smarter than other species. They were something else entirely. They were beings who had learned that the word impossible was just the starting point for finding a solution. And they had saved his people simply because it was the right thing to do. 3 weeks after the evacuation, Veltar stood on the observation deck of the human colony ship New Horizons, watching the burned remains of what had once been Zephyr Prime. Their world was now a frozen rock, its atmosphere gone, its cities buried under ice. But his people were alive, scattered across a dozen colony ships heading toward new worlds that the humans had helped them find. The price of their survival had been paid in human blood. 37 human ships had been lost during the evacuation. Some had been destroyed by solar flares that overwhelmed their shields. Others had suffered critical system failures from radiation damage. A few had simply been too damaged to make the journey home and had been abandoned in space. But the ships were not the worst loss. 412 humans had died saving the Zephyrians. Some had died instantly when their ships were destroyed. Others had succumbed to radiation sickness despite the humans' remarkable ability to heal. A few had died in accidents during the frantic evacuation efforts. What shocked Veltar was not the number of deaths, which was actually lower than the humans had expected. What shocked him was how the humans reacted to losing their people. There was no anger, no blame, no demands for compensation or recognition. The humans mourned their dead with quiet dignity and immediately began analyzing what had gone wrong so they could do better next time. "We knew people would not come home," Commander Elena Vasquez had told him. She was Captain Chen's second in command. A woman with sad eyes who had lost her brother when his ship had been caught in a solar flare. But that is the thing about humans. We have never let fear of death stop us from doing what is right. Veltar had attended the memorial service for the human dead. It was unlike anything in Zephyrian culture. There was sadness, but also pride. The humans spoke of their dead not as victims, but as heroes who had chosen to risk everything to save strangers. Miguel always said he wanted to make a difference, Elena had said about her brother. He saved 8,000 Zephyrian children before his ship was destroyed. He would say that was a good trade. A good trade. A human life for 8,000 alien children. The math was simple to humans in a way that terrified Veltar. Now, as he watched his dead world through the viewing port, Veltar tried to understand the beings who had saved his people. Dr. Webb had been giving him informal lessons about human psychology, and each lesson left him more confused. Humans do not see death the same way most species do, Webb had explained. We know we are going to die eventually. Every human knows this from childhood. So we focus on making our lives meaningful rather than making them long. But surely you value your own lives, Veltar had protested. Of course we do, Webb replied. But we value some things more than our lives. Justice, freedom, the lives of innocent people. When we have to choose between our own safety and protecting others, most humans will choose to protect others. That seems like a survival trait that would eliminate itself, Veltar had pointed out. Webb had smiled that disturbing human smile. You would think so, but it actually helped us survive as a species. Humans who were willing to sacrifice themselves to protect their tribe made the whole tribe stronger. Over millions of years, we evolved to be naturally heroic. Naturally heroic. The idea made Veltar's head hurt. He was still thinking about this when Captain Chen found him at the viewing port. She looked much better than she had 3 weeks ago. Her hair was growing back, though it was now white instead of black. Her skin had healed, leaving only faint scars. The human ability to recover from damage was as remarkable as their ability to survive it. How are your people adjusting? She asked, looking out at the frozen remains of Zephyr Prime. They are doing well, Veltar replied. The colony ships are comfortable, and your people have been very helpful in planning our new settlements. But I have a question for you. Ask away. Why did you come? Veltar turned to face her. I have been studying human history and psychology. Your species has its own problems. Wars, diseases, environmental damage. You could have used those ships and people to help your own colonies. Why risk everything for strangers? Chen was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the dead world. Because you asked for help, she said finally. And because we could provide it. That is not a complete answer. Chen smiled. No, it is not. The complete answer is more complicated. Humans have a saying, with great power comes great responsibility. We have ships that can survive in conditions that would kill most species. We have people who can work in environments that would be fatal to others. Having those abilities means we have a responsibility to use them to help people. Even if it costs human lives? Especially if it costs human lives, Chen replied firmly. Freedom and safety that you do not earn mean nothing. Every human who died here chose to risk their life to save yours. That choice is what made them heroes. Veltar shook his head. I will never understand your species. You do not have to understand us, Chen said. You just have to trust that when you need help, we will be there. And what do you get in return? We offered you our technology, but you have barely looked at it. Chen laughed, a sound that was both warm and slightly frightening. Veltar, your people are experts at living in peace and building beautiful things. You have art and music and literature that will enrich human culture for generations. You have scientific knowledge that will help us solve problems we have not even encountered yet. But more than that, she continued, you have given us something we value more than any technology. You have given us new friends. Humans collect friends the way other species collect resources. Every species we meet, every civilization we help, becomes part of the human family. Family? The human concept of family extends beyond blood relations, Chen explained. We adopt people into our families. We take responsibility for them, and they take responsibility for us. Your people are now part of the human family. That means we will always be there when you need help. And if you need help? Chen's smile became warmer. Then we know we can count on our friends. As Veltar thought about this, he realized that the humans had not just saved his people from extinction. They had fundamentally changed what it meant to be Zephyrian. His people were no longer alone in the galaxy. They were part of something larger and more powerful than they had ever imagined. But with that protection came responsibility. If humans were willing to die for strangers, what did that mean for those strangers? What obligations came with being saved by beings who treated heroism as a normal Tuesday? Captain, Veltar said slowly, what happens if other species threaten humanity? What happens if you are the ones who need rescuing? Chen's smile became sharp again, showing those predator teeth. Then you will discover what happens when someone threatens the human family. And I suspect you will learn that we have been much gentler with our enemies than we have been with ourselves. The thought sent a chill through Veltar's body. If humans were willing to suffer and die to save strangers, what would they do to protect the people they considered family? He was not sure he wanted to find out, but he was suddenly very glad that the Zephyrians were on the right side of that equation. Outside the viewing port, Zephyr Prime continued its silent orbit around a dead star, a monument to what could have been lost and a reminder of what had been saved. The humans had paid a terrible price to rescue his people, but somehow, Veltar suspected that they considered it a bargain. 6 months after the rescue of Zephyr Prime, Veltar stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Cooperation Council, watching as humanity was formally inducted into galactic civilization. The ceremony should have been a celebration, but the mood in the massive chamber was tense and uncertain. The other species did not know what to do with humans. Ambassador Sarah Chen, now recovered from her radiation injuries and wearing the formal blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, stood at the speaker's podium facing representatives from over 200 different civilizations. Her presence alone had changed the dynamics of galactic politics. Honored representatives, Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. Humanity is grateful for this opportunity to join the galactic community. We look forward to learning from your civilizations and contributing what we can to the common good. The speech was diplomatically perfect. But Veltar could see the discomfort on the faces of many representatives. The humans had been classified as a Deathworlder species, the first sapient race ever, discovered that had evolved on a Class 2 hazardous world and somehow achieved spaceflight. The classification had created controversy. Some species argued that beings from Deathworlds were too dangerous to be allowed into civilized space. Others insisted that the humans' rescue of the Zephyrians proved they could be trusted. A few suggested that humanity should be studied rather than integrated. The humans present a unique case, announced Council Speaker Thane, an ancient being whose species had helped found the galactic government over 3,000 years ago. Never before have we encountered a sapient species that treats extreme danger as a normal part of existence. Veltar had been invited to speak as a witness to human capabilities. As he walked to the podium, he thought about everything he had learned about these impossible beings over the past months. The humans had not just saved his people and left. They had stayed to help establish new colonies, sharing their knowledge of survival and adaptation. Zephyrian children were now learning from human teachers who casually discussed living on worlds with dangerous weather and predatory animals. Human colonies were being established on worlds that other species had written off as uninhabitable. Planets with high radiation, extreme weather, or hostile native life forms were being turned into thriving human settlements. The humans seemed to view challenges as opportunities. Honored Council, Veltar began, I have spent the last 6 months studying humanity and living among them. I have learned that they are not simply another spacefaring species. They are something entirely new in galactic history. He activated the holographic display and showed images from the human rescue mission. These beings worked in conditions that would have been instantly fatal to any other known species. They suffered radiation burns, equipment failures, and the loss of their own people. Yet they never considered retreating or abandoning the mission. The chamber was silent as the images showed humans working in the hellish environment around Zephyr Prime's dying star. But this is not the most remarkable thing about humans, Veltar continued. The most remarkable thing is that they treated this as normal. They did not see themselves as heroes performing an impossible task. They saw themselves as neighbors helping neighbors. He switched to images of human colonies on dangerous worlds. Humans do not just survive in hostile environments. They thrive in them. They have turned survival itself into an art form. They take worlds that would kill other species and make them into homes. A representative from the cautious hegemony species raised a question. But surely such aggressive survival traits make humans dangerous to other species. Veltar smiled, remembering a conversation he had had with Dr. Webb about human psychology. You would think so. But human aggression is primarily directed at challenges and threats, not at other sapient beings. They are more likely to adopt you into their family than to attack you. Family? Asked the representative. Humans extend their protective instincts to any beings they consider part of their social group, Veltar explained. They rescued my people not because they had something to gain, but because we asked for help and they were capable of providing it. To humans, that created a family bond that they will honor for generations. Council Speaker Thane leaned forward. Are you suggesting that humans are naturally altruistic? I am suggesting that humans have evolved social instincts that drive them to protect others, even at cost to themselves, Veltar replied. But they have also evolved to be extremely effective at eliminating threats to their social group. They are simultaneously the most protective and most dangerous species I have ever encountered. The chamber erupted in quiet discussion as representatives tried to process this information. Finally, Ambassador Chen was allowed to respond. The Council has expressed concerns about human nature, she said calmly. I would like to address those concerns directly. Humans are indeed capable of great violence when protecting others or defending ourselves. Our history includes terrible wars and conflicts. But we have also learned that cooperation and mutual aid make us stronger than competition and conflict, she continued. We prefer to solve problems through diplomacy and mutual assistance. However, we will not hesitate to fight if peaceful solutions fail. A representative from the militaristic wardens asked, what assurance can you give that humans will not become a threat to galactic peace? Chen's smile was polite but showed her sharp teeth. The same assurance any species can give. We will honor our agreements and treat our friends with loyalty and respect. But I will not lie to you about what we are. We are predators from a death world. We have survived everything our planet could throw at us. And we learn to help each other do the same. Cross us or threaten our friends, she added, and you will discover that we are much gentler with our enemies than we are with ourselves. The chamber fell silent. The message was clear. Humans could be trusted allies, but they would be terrible enemies. Over the following hours, the Council debated humanity's admission. In the end, the vote was unanimous, though Veltar suspected some representatives voted yes, because they were afraid to say no. As the ceremony concluded, Veltar approached Ambassador Chen in the reception area. How do you think this will change the galaxy? He asked. Chen looked around at the representatives from hundreds of different species, all trying to figure out how to deal with humanity's presence. It will make the galaxy safer, she said finally. There are threats out there that the current galactic civilization cannot handle. Rogue stellar phenomena, hostile alien artifacts, dangerous life forms on unexplored worlds. When those threats emerge, the galaxy will need people who specialize in doing the impossible. And if those threats never emerge, Chen's smile became genuinely warm. Then we will help explore new worlds, solve scientific problems, and probably adopt a few more species into the human family. We are very good at finding ways to be useful. As Veltar watched the human ambassador move through the crowd, effortlessly charming representatives who had been terrified of her an hour earlier, he realized that the galaxy had indeed changed. For 3,000 years, galactic civilization had been built on avoiding risk and maintaining stability. Now they had humans, beings who treated risk as a challenge and impossible as a starting point, species who would volunteer to die for strangers and somehow make it look easy. The galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place, and probably a much safer one, as long as you were on humanity's good side. Looking around at the representatives still discussing the implications of human membership, Veltar had one final thought. The humans had not just saved his people from a dying star. They had fundamentally changed what was possible in galactic civilization. They had proven that when someone sent a distress call into the void, someone would always answer, even if that someone came from a death world and treated the impossible as just another Tuesday. The age of humanity and galactic civilization had begun, and nothing would ever be the same.